You'll notice that this bait is not weedless, but when you pull straight back on this line, you'll see this tail comes up. That is a weed guard. Now it's not totally weedless, but you'll see there's a little V in here that just lets that hook pass right through. So when I fish this thing in weeds, I come up, I fish it in the holes in lily pads, holes in any kind of weeds, and you just throw it in there and you're just popping it. When you come up to where you want to, where the edge of the weeds start, you pull back on this and you just keep that rod tip moving and it'll close that lure down, and then it'll allow it to pass through there. So you can feather it right over the top of the weeds or right through it. And that's true for just about any sort of structure you're fishing. You cast it out into the hole that you want to fish, and as soon as you come up to whatever it is, weeds, an obstruction, lily pads, pull back and feather it through, and you'll be able to close it down and get it through there, and then open back up again and then fish the next hole. We designed this bait on a lake up north that was so weedy. It had Eurasian milfoil took over the entire lake, and what happened is the weeds would come up onto the surface and they'd grow in thick mats all the way across the surface. So there was no lures that we could use that we could throw out there, because you'd have to reel them in to make them do their action. And this bait was created because we needed a bait that we could cast out and not have to reel in. We could throw it there into the holes in these weeds and just twitch it and let it do its thing. When it lands, it'll travel to the rear of the hole, and then you just twitch it a couple times, close the lure down, feather it through to the next hole, and let it sink down into these holes. We came up with this bait out of necessity because these weeds were so bad that we had to have a harvester just come to carve lanes so we could get our boats off the docks. But this is how this one started. It was just all about finding a lure that we could cast out into these holes, let it sink, let it twitch, let it do its thing, and then when you come up to the obstruction of the weeds, you pull back and you can feather it through. This is your weed guard, and it'll go right over the top or right through most of the weeds. And so that's how this whole category of bait got started.